Welcome to the Cultivation Podcast. I'm your host, Tom Hamill, and today I have a really personal topic called Untie the Ropes, and we're going to talk all about forgiveness, what it is, what it means, what it's not, and how to walk through it. So let's get into it. I don't know about you, I have siblings. And so growing up, sometimes we would do stuff, say stuff, even hit each other a little bit. And our parents had to make us apologize to each other. As a parent, I've had to do this with my own kids, say sorry to your sister, that sort of thing. And then, you kind of grumbly say, I'm sorry, even though you don't really mean it, but you have to say it so you don't get into more trouble, that sort of thing. So nobody likes to apologize. No one likes it's not like, oh, I can't wait to get it wrong so I can say I'm sorry, right? And unless you're talking about that make out session, kind of thing, we fight so we can make up again, deal in those, with a spouse or romantic relationship, that sort of thing. But that's a whole nother topic. But when it comes to forgiveness, whether we have done the wrong or we have been wronged, this is something that is a core part of my journey. And again, I talk about this in my book, The Life You're Meant to Lead. I talk a lot about my relationship with my father that was abusive when I was growing up. And we got into a lot of fights, a lot of physical altercations that even resulted in, at one point, I had to be pulled out of our home because it was so violent and police didn't think it was safe, that sort of thing. And so it was a very interesting upbringing, to say the least. And it created all this bitterness and tension in my life, particularly during my early teenage years, really from the time I was about 9 in the 4th grade all the way through the 8th grade and even beyond. It really ruled my life. This anger that I had towards my dad, this anger that I had towards my father, it really controlled me, and it took over everything I did, said, how I treated people, how I talked to people, friends, other family members, in my case, girlfriends, right, teachers, my mom, my sister, those sort of things. All of this anger, hatred, and rage was all focused towards this bitterness, this unforgiveness that I had towards my father, towards my dad. And so then I just kind of came to this point, or this place, if you will, in my life where it all kind of came to a head because I didn't want to forgive him. I didn't want to let go. I didn't want to allow or let him off the hook, if you will, for the things he had done to me or in my life, that sort of things. And so here's what I discovered going through my journey. And again, I talk a little bit about this in the book, but there are some things that, because of time and space and depth and, nuances, I couldn't get in all the pages. But sometimes when we say, oh, you need to forgive and forget, or you need to let go, that we say that a little haphazard, and we say that nonchalantly, like that's just something we can do. And we have to own the fact that sometimes when we have a person, a face that we can be angry towards, there's at least some intentionality and some focus on who we can be mad at and who we can place blame on. And there's a little bit of comfort. I know that sounds really ironic, that there's comfort in our pain because we have someone to blame. I didn't mean for that to rhyme whatsoever, but let me just say that again, because it's so true that we get to a place where we're comfortable with our pain because we have someone to blame. And as long as we have that person to blame, and we can always focus that blame towards them, we can always say, hey, it's your fault, I'm blaming you. And we never have to take personal responsibility. And you might be saying, whoa, wait, time out. The reason I'm hurt, the reason I'm wounded, the reason I'm going through this is not because of what I've done, but because of what they have done, which is where we get into this idea of forgiveness. What does forgiveness do? Here's what forgiveness does. Forgiveness unties the ropes that bind us to that person, that place, that event that has wounded us, right? forgiveness unties those ropes. That as long as we're walking around with unforgiveness or bitterness towards that person, place, event, or thing, fill in the blank, because there's lots of situations that scar and mark our lives and wound our hearts and our minds all throughout life, and we all have them. So I'm not here to say one is more dramatic than the other. Hey, if it's impacted you, it's dramatic to you. It's real to you. Even if I don't think it or see it as a big deal, if it's impacted you, it's a big deal to you, right? And so as long as I'm hanging on to that, that is something that binds me to that place, to that event, to that thing that happened to me, or that someone else made a choice to do, that sort of thing. So it binds me. And so when I choose forgiveness, right, that's an important thing, because even if someone comes to me and apologizes, doesn't mean I choose to forgive them. Even if I say the words, that's okay. And if I haven't chosen in my own heart, if you haven't chosen in your own heart to forgive somebody and to let it go, or to be released from that is a better way of saying it. Sometimes when we say let it go, we say it like it's so easy. It's not. But we have to make the choice. You have to make the choice. I have to make the choice to be untied from that person, place, thing, situation, right? That sort of thing. And it's a choice I have to make. And so forgiveness is not about letting somebody off the hook. It's not about saying, hey, what you did to me, or how you violated, or how you broke that promise, or how you abandoned, or whatever the case may be, how you wounded and said those terrible things, all of those kinds of things. I'm not saying that it's okay by forgiving you. I'm saying I'm going to untie the ropes that bind me to it. And that's really what forgiveness is all about. And any of us that have walked this earth, we have broken relationships, whether it's from a parent, like the story I shared at the beginning of the show, whether it's from a child who, you should have been more respectful than that, or you should have put your family first over this. There's lots of situations. Maybe it's a boss. I've had employers that, hey, you didn't come through with your promise. You didn't do what you said when I got hired, right? Those kinds of things. And, the list goes on and on and on. I don't even need to give you all of the examples. But when I choose to walk in forgiveness, it's not me letting them off the hook. It's me letting me off the hook. It's me untying the ropes that bind me to that person, place, or event in my life. But here's the thing. Let me go back to this. Forgiveness is about you, not them. When I forgive somebody, it's about me, not them. When I let go of it, it's about me, not them. Sometimes we get this misconception or this idea that I'm letting them off the hook. I'm letting them go free. I'm letting them out of it, right? And we're all about justice, and they must pay. I've been hurt, so you have to pay. And you wounded me, so you need to be wounded. An eye for an eye, kind of an idea. But forgiveness is a choice I make, and it's about me. And really, what it's saying is that my identity is never going to be wrapped up in that thing anymore, right? Whether it's sexual abuse, or physical abuse, whether it's a broken marriage or relationship, right? You're saying, as long as I hang on to it, now I am a sexually abused person. Now I'm a divorcee or divorcee, or however you say that. Now I am a fired individual, right? Because you're hanging on to whatever that offense is, and now your identity is wrapped into that. But here is where forgiveness is more about you than them or that event, is that when you choose to walk in forgiveness, you say, that's not my identity anymore. I'm actually becoming someone different. I'm being awakened to someone different. I've mapped out a new identity, and I'm pursuing that identity, and forgiveness is a key part of becoming the you that you're supposed to do. And it's not about saying the wound or the offense didn't happen. It's not saying that it didn't happen. It's just saying I'm not so tied to that anymore that it gets to define who I am, that it gets to define my identity, that my identity is no longer wrapped up in that assault or that beating or that abusive relationship or that, again, I don't even have the vocabulary enough to possibly name any of the offenses that are either watching or listening here today. We all have them, and you know what yours is and what that area is of your life. But as long as you hang on to it, it becomes a part of your identity. A lot of people get comfortable in that because they're like, I'm at least identified as this. I'm at least, I've got a symbol of who I am because I have this. But we're letting those things go and we're mapping out and charting a new identity. And so part of that is letting go of that former identity, which may mean and may require on our part. Again, this is about us. It's about taking personal responsibility of the things that I can control, of saying forgiveness. Now, let me just say this right here. I actually walked through a huge healing moment with my dad. He's passed away. He passed away in 2014. It was an incredible, incredible moment. Not because he died. I miss him every day. So please don't take that as a morbid moment. But I mean, we had a complete restoration of our relationship. When he passed away, he was my best friend and I miss him every day. But I've got this incredible memories, not of regret, not of wounds, not of the hurt, but really of the restored relationship. And I'll tell you right now, my dad never asked for me to forgive him before I chose to forgive him. So sometimes we put stipulations out there that may never happen. Well, I'll forgive you when you ask. That's not really forgiveness. That's you seeking justice. And I'm just calling that out because that's a true perspective, right? And so as we are pursuing this identity, let's just get real. Let's just get raw that if I'm waiting to forgive somebody until they ask for it, until they seek it out, that's not really you letting it go. That's you seeking justice, that you want them to own their stuff. And maybe they never own their stuff. Maybe they never realize it. And again, just pointing this out, I went and talked to my dad about all the things that were happening. I was a little bit older. I was 17 years old. We had a different phase of life and different things. And I said, Dad, I just want you to know all of my behavior was shaped by this and how much I blamed you and how much I just was so wrapped up in how much it was your fault. But I'm here to tell you that I forgive you. And you know what he said to me? He said, I never even knew that. And here's what I discovered. I was hanging on to this wound. I was hanging on to this offense. I was hanging on to this bitterness. And the one person I was blaming was clueless to it, wasn't even affected by it. Now, again, I have a beautiful story where I was able to completely restore my relationship with my dad. And again, today, even though he's passed away, he's gone into his eternal reward, I live with no regrets on my relationship with my dad. I had a beautiful, magnificent, one to be envied by others kind of relationship with my dad. And I say that completely with a clear conscience and a clear heart. That may not be your story. You may not get that opportunity. You may not have that same kind of encounter and journey and perspective in life. And I get that. I am blessed. I'm extremely blessed that I get that kind of story. And you may not. But the point of sharing that is, if I had waited until my dad said he was sorry, it would have never come because he didn't even know. He was clueless to that. He was oblivious to that. And here I was living in this misery, living in this pain that was tying me up and binding me up, and he never even knew about it. That apology was never coming. And so my forgiveness to him had nothing to do with him. It was all about choosing to be unbound and untied to him in that way and saying that's no longer going to be my identity. I'm no longer going to be the bound up, angry Tommy Hamill who does damage to all these other relationships because he's mad and hurt and wounded by that relationship. And so I got untied and unbound and unidentified to those things, started mapping out a new identity that literally transformed my dad and his personality and the person that he was and our relationship and our whole family because it changed both of us. Again, that may not be your story, but that's mine. You can hear the full story or read the full story in the audio or the tree version of the book, The Life You're Meant to Lead. But here's the thing that I want to leave you with about forgiveness, and really the most powerful tool that I can illustrate for you. Forgiveness is about turning your wounds into scars. And what do I mean by that? Some of you have heard this story. I kind of shared a little bit about this in a previous season where I actually have a pretty extensive leg injury from a skateboarding accident. I was trying to be a Tony Hawk and I'm more of a Danny DeVito. I don't know, something like that. I just got a picture of the movie Twins in my mind, which kind of dates me. It's an old movie from way back when, I think in the 80s, that sort of thing. So here's the thing. We all have had wounds, and as long as we're holding on to the bitterness or the identity of that moment or that season or that event that took place, it holds the wounds open. And when I broke my leg, I broke it so severely that the doctor actually had to do pressure cuts. There are cuts in my legs that he had to do to relieve the pressure of the swelling and the intensity of the break. If you get a little woozy about those things, I apologize. I don't mean to. But I had to have what was basically a rubber band suture that held open the wound so that those things wouldn't fester internally but would spew out, and I had to change all the bandages and all those kinds of things. In the same way, that is what happens to us when we're wounded by these moments, that we fester out and we spew out all of this toxic things onto other people, even people that weren't a part of the offense. The toxicity of my bitterness and anger towards my dad impacted every single person in relationship I had in my life. Every single one of them. There wasn't one that wasn't impacted or affected by the toxic nature and things that were building up in my own heart. Towards him, I thought I couldn't control that, and you can't control it either. Just like the toxicity in my leg couldn't be just controlled to that one area. It was going to poison my whole body if the doctor said, we got to get this toxins out. But in order to do that, a wound held open because it spewed out. As long as your wound is holding open, you are spewing out toxins onto every relationship, onto every encounter, onto every opportunity that you have. But forgiveness is the healing of those wounds, and it turns them into scars. So let me just be transparent and real. I have scars today. If you were to look at my ugly, jacked up leg from all the scars, stitches, and staples and breaks that were a part of that skateboarding accident, which, by the way, I'm banned from being on any kind of wheels after that event. But I have scars, and here's what the scars are. Scars are, first and foremost, proof that I've been healed, proof that I'm whole, proof that those wounds aren't there anymore. They're proof that I've gotten through that, I've gotten past that, and I've moved beyond that. My scars are proof that those wounds have been closed. They're also proof that I was impacted by that. For me to walk around and try to deny that I broke my leg because I walk with a limp or because I have these scars, they'll be like, well, what happened there? What's that all about? What'd you do? What's going on there, right? And I'm like, oh, that's nothing. That didn't happen. No. I have scars that say, hey, it did happen, but I got through it. Hey, it did happen, but I got better. And in fact, my leg has healed up to the point that it's now actually stronger than it was before the break. I know that's a little nerdy science about how calcium builds up and is stronger. And I have a titanium rod that goes from my knee to my ankle that is even stronger. They're saying that it takes so much pressure to bend and break that rod, and it's so strong that they have to use a special diamond-crusted blade to even cut it out of my leg if I were to do damage to it. So I'm not allowed on wheels. But what I'm saying is that when I brought forgiveness to my life, when I brought forgiveness to my heart and I was unbound to that, the scars are still there. Yes, I was abused as a child. Yes, I grew up in a toxic environment and a relationship with my dad, but I'm so much stronger now, not because I'm still wounded, but because I have the scars that tell the story, that say, look, I got through that. I got over that. I got past that. And those scars are proof that I can get through it. They're also stories to say, hey, if I got through it, so can you. And it's allowed me to even share this story today. It allows me to share this story in the book. It allows me to share this story in person when I speak at conferences and conventions and different platforms, that sort of thing, to say, hey, through forgiveness as a tool, through forgiveness as a resource, I'm able to say I'm unbound from that. I'm no longer defined from that, and I'm actually now stronger because I got through that, and the toxins are gone because the scars prove that I'm stronger and that I'm whole. And I want to encourage you This is not an easy step. Forgiveness is a process. I talk a lot more about that in the book. But if you're dealing with bitterness, if you're dealing with unforgiveness, seek help. There's no shame in that because it is difficult to get through these moments. It's difficult to get through those seasons. So there's no shame in saying, hey, I'm not strong enough to do this on my own. Even the healing on my leg, I had to use crutches. I had to use a boot. I had to use like one of those little walking scooters because I was like, I'm not strong enough to do this on my own. And I needed some aids and I needed some help to get me through that. And you possibly will need that as well. So I don't ever want to just handle this topic haphazardly, like it's like you would just say, just get over it. No, it's not that simple because sometimes those wounds are deep. Sometimes those hurts and those pains, they're real, they're raw, and they go a lot further than just saying, oh well, I'm just going to shrug it off and get over it. Nope, it's real. But forgiveness is your tool. Forgiveness is your resource of taking personal responsibility to say, I'm not going to be defined by that anymore. Thanks for letting me share a really raw episode and tell my story just a little bit. I'd love for you to check us out on ourcultivatedlives.com. That's where you can get the resources. You can find the book. You can find our social media feeds on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Pinterest, all those kinds of things. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to chat with you. We'd love to journey together as we are walking in the cultivated life. Thanks for checking us out today. Be sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on all the incredible content we have coming out. Also, we'd love to hear from you in the comment section. We read those, we respond to those as we journey together in the cultivated life.